New York City Mayor Eric Adams has come out and said that New York is full and that it can't take any more immigrants into the city. He's not been called racist for saying so. Have a look at this.
Our cities are being undermined, and we don't deserve this. Migrants don't deserve this, and the people who live in the cities don't deserve this. We expect more from our national leaders to address this issue in a real way. We learned today, which was very informative, and that's why it was important to come here, that there are websites that are advertising that New York City, basically streets are paved with gold, that there's automatic employment, that you're automatically going to be living in a hotel. There's a conversation among those who are asylum seekers and migrants who are given the false impression that if you come to New York City, everything is fine. We have to give people accurate information, and that's what some of the centers are doing here. They are truly explaining to people that this is what's happening in New York right now. In New York, you go there, you're going to be living in congregate settings, that there is no more room in.
Okay, so the New York City Mayor is quite comfortable to give that speech and to use that kind of language without overtly being called a racist or a fascist or things like that. He's just talking about the bare realities of the situation. New York's services just can't cope anymore. We have a situation in Ireland where 220,000 both refugees, as they're being described, and economic immigrants, mainly economic immigrants, came into Ireland and received PPS numbers in 2022. Those figures are repeating themselves, it would appear, in 2023. Ireland has a population of, had a population until recently of just 4.5 million. Our services, before any influx of immigration, were creaking and bending, and many people, the Minister of Finance, in fact, apparently described at a private meeting the other day, or the Minister for Health described our health services as broken and unfixable and a disaster the other day. And yet we're taking in these massive amounts of people that we can't cope with. The same with our housing situation. We don't have houses to house the people who are here as it is, never mind house all these new people. And when you discuss that or try to mention that in the Irish Republic in any form of media or in any form of political discussion, you are immediately jumped and mobbed by the political classes right across the board, and you are labelled a racist. And I'm sure there's some people in the political classes that are actually sharing the views that I'm expressing now, but are afraid to utter them, because there seems to be some kind of it's almost like the worst of what happened in Nazi Germany or Stalinist Russia in terms of not being allowed to speak the basic common sense things that are happening. Whilst you have the New York City Mayor free and open to have a practical discussion of that nature, in Ireland, this is the kind of headlines that we are presented with when we try to discuss things like this. Man sexually assaulted while walking dogs, tells of concerns after anti-immigration protest held in area he was attacked in. Okay, so this man was attacked, sexually assaulted, I believe, by a number of economic immigrants into the country, possibly asylum seekers, but considering that the likelihood normally is of economic immigration, I'll presume that that's who they are, stand to be corrected. So he was sexually assaulted. This is the headline that the Irish Independent decided to run with, that he concerned after anti-immigration protests held in area he was attacked in. So the story is not about really the attack or anything like that. It's about his concerns about anti-immigration protests. I wouldn't be surprised if they said to him at the end of a conversation, would you be concerned if there was thousands of people here protesting about immigration? And he said yes. So they decided to run that headline by setting this up. That's what I see from this. I just think it's an outrageous headline. What do you think, Padraig?
I just find that the media are whether intentionally or not, they're playing a role which is furthering division, and how they construct stories and how they put things. Like I suppose, like you could say, like in that article that you're looking at the heading of there, should they be mentioning that where people are coming from? There was a crime, and the crime is the news story, really. Like, I mean, is that not like a form of racism, really, like, to be highlighting it in that. Really, like, it seems to be all in the working class sphere, all this conversation. Okay, like, big media is talking about it, but they're not talking about it in more affluent areas. They're talking about it, so it's like the working class fighting amongst each other and trying to educate each other on how to think on these things. Like, there is simple mechanics that comes into play about having provisions and services in place to give people proper care. Like, you shouldn't be bringing people in to create a bigger societal problem. You should be bringing people into a system that is able for them. Now, there's always extreme circumstances, emergencies, where you have to adapt as you go. But are we managing this properly? Like, I think everybody agrees that we need to be focusing our issues with the government, who are in charge of providing services. And I think we probably would also agree that the way to deal with these issues is certainly, like, to address with those who are in power, and not maybe at the centres and where people are residing, because it's not their fault, you know.
Yeah. They just took an opportunity that was laid before them by the Irish state. I fully agree with you, and it's something that we haven't really focused on in the past, and that is the nature of the protests that are occurring at the moment. I personally fully understand the concerns that people have. I have been quite a radical protester in the past myself. You just have to Google my name to find that out. But I wouldn't agree myself with going to where there are women and children in particular at centres. I'd be concerned about that. And that doesn't help any movement. Though I do know the protests just didn't go there. They also went and they blocked roads and they did things like that as well. But if I was to counsel any protest leaders into the future, I'd say focus this at the politicians, focus it at the Dáil, focus it at ministries, focus it at your council meetings. Stay away from women and kids. It's just not ethical, and B, it won't help the cause at all.